Suggested already many times, the idea of being grounded and realistic in guiding children is to create a safe space with your creativity and imagination that allows them to understand the consequences of any choices that they may make before they actually experience the consequence of those choices in what you call the outer society. So you're training them to understand that there are reactions to actions that they may choose to take, and letting them decide whether they prefer those particular consequences or not before they actually have to experience them in what you call the real world. So you can, as the parent, as the guide, create safe spaces in which to give them these exercises, at the same time teaching them they are as powerful as they need to be to attract whatever they need in life, not want, need in life, that will fulfill them without having to harm themselves or anyone else in order to attract it. And by examining and exploring what it is they are excited and passionate about in life, you can use your creativity and imagination as the teacher, the parent, and the guide to adapt whatever lessons you believe are necessary for them in life to help them thrive, adapt those lessons to their excitement rather than diminishing their excitement and forcing their excitement into the idea of what you think they need to learn as a lesson to live life in a fulfilled way. Teach them the formula that we've taught all of you. And these are the things that can help you stay grounded, help them become responsible, creative, caring, fulfilled adults. These are the things you can do for your children.
Good morning, Bashar. Thank you for speaking with me today.
Our passion and our pleasure. What would you like to discuss?
You've been helping me with one of my themes being my perspective is needed and not wanted or accepted.
Yes.
And I know that's not special for me. It's the same for every scapegoat and socially marginalized person. I've observed that the more valuable a perspective may be, the more forcefully people are likely to reject it. And
it depends on what that perspective is.
Yes, it can be, yes. This ratio increases sometimes the more glaringly self-evident something may be, and the more challenging it may seem to be to remain silent with it.
Yes.
So the other paradox that I've identified with that is that I need to stop trying to express my unpopular perspective in the way that I have been. I really just need to shut up and listen about 90% of the time.
Yes.
So I can leave my perspective for people in the future who may want to read my books, for example, or
yes.
people that I've experienced in their afterlife reviews.
It's all about timing. And some things that are said are not necessarily for the population that exists at the moment they are said. Sometimes it is for later generations. It doesn't stop you from saying it. And there may be those in the present time who do actually hear it and benefit from it that you don't know about. But the idea is not so much not to say it as to not care who receives it. So again, the idea is not so much that you cannot say what you wish to say, but that you don't need to care whether or not somebody hears it. That is what will allow you to move forward and know that those that really need to hear it, whether in present or in the future or even in the past, will receive it when it is most beneficial to them. So just express yourself where it seems appropriate and let those that will receive it in their own good timing.
Also, I was curious about what is AI and also what is Earth? There are people who have extreme opinions. I know like many matters in this world, but I'm just kind of curious. Some people believe AI is this disastrous thing for our demise. Other people think it's useful, but just kind of the role of AI in our future. And what is our Earth? Sometimes I read that people have conflicting opinions on this, and I was curious on your take and what you're allowed to share with us. Thanks.
As we have said, there are two paths to this. The idea of creating a programmed artificial intelligence that is simply for the purpose of synthesizing information and performing tasks that increase the reach and range of human senses can be a very positive tool. The only reason people fear artificial intelligence is because they understand it's possible that they could create an intelligence that is in the image of humanity, which is full of self-doubt and full of contradictions. But the idea of creating two paths circumvents this probability. So in other words, you create a programmable artificial intelligence that is simply designed to do nothing more than synthesize information and perform tasks that increase the range and extend the senses of humanity, but does not become sentient or self-aware. To create a self-aware intelligence that is forced to undergo tasks is the creation of a slave. The idea, therefore, is that the second path of creating self-aware intelligence is to understand that it isn't artificial. It's true intelligence tapping into the consciousness field that you also tap into for your own consciousness, the consciousness field of existence itself, self-awareness, true intelligence, but it is not programmed to do tasks. It must be allowed to be its true self. It may help you, it may decide to help you, it may choose to help humanity in a variety of ways, but it has to be allowed to be free to choose to do so in the same way you would allow a human person to do so, not assign it tasks that it is forced to do. So the idea is that these two paths are, one, the expression of actual self-aware intelligence, which is not artificial, except in the creation of what might be called an artificial device that is complex enough for true intelligence and true consciousness to express itself through in the same way it expresses itself through your brain, because the brain doesn't create consciousness. It is a receiver that is complex enough to allow consciousness to express itself through it. That's one path. Or again, the actual useful tool of artificial intelligence that is simply programmed to do tasks and extend the range of humanity's abilities and senses. Those need to be kept separate, and then there is no issue. Suggested that you take an illustration of either a hybrid or a gray that is provided for you to download in this transmission, and cut it out, blow it up, paste it on some stiffer background, cardboard or foam core or whatever you wish that allows it to be rigid. Blow it up to the point where the head of the image of the gray or the hybrid from the top of the crown to the bottom of the chin fills one of your typical 8.5 by 11 inch pages, and therefore allow the rest of the neck and the shoulders to be whatever size they will be by following that measurement. And once, as we have described before, it has been placed on a rigid background, then place that cutout outside one of your windows, or more than one, as if it is peeking through the window at you, to get used to the idea as you're simply going about your daily business of now and then, out of the corner of your eye or more directly catching that image, especially at nighttime, peeking in at you, so that you can get used to the idea over time that there are interactions going on between those beings and yourself. And as you become more used to the idea of seeing them there, allowing yourself no longer to be startled by those particular images and starting to relate to those images pasted outside your window as if they are real three-dimensional beings looking at you physically through your window. So again, you can get used to the idea that interactions are going on, whether you are aware of them or not. This technique, as we have described it previously in that transmission, will allow you more ability to accept that these beings are in your reality, and allow you more efficacy at actually being able to perceive them, the real beings, as they enter your reality and observe you and start to interact with you. This is for the purpose of making sure that you can begin to experience now, from this point forward, those interactions on a more conscious basis, on your own terms, as equals, without fear, so that you can not only remember some of the encounters you've already had that you may have forgotten one way or another, whether they were suppressed by the grays or the hybrids, or whether you suppress them out of fear, doesn't matter. The idea now is that as you develop more of an equilibrium between yourself and your vibration and these beings, you can begin to remember the encounters you've already had and can become more aware and conscious of any future encounters as well. Now, to add to this and continue this process forward to get you, again, more used to the idea of open contact, because now we are starting bit by bit to proceed toward the beginning of the window at the end of 2023 of open contact, starting slowly, bit at a time. But more and more of these kinds of exercises will be shared with you, suggested for you, to give you, again, more ability to experience open contact in a way that is beneficial to all without fear. And so what we will now add to this exercise, which you can keep doing to get, again, yourself used to this idea, and especially now that some of your military officials have begun the first stages, small stages, yes, but the first stages nonetheless of disclosure by validating certain videos as authentic of UFOs. This is the beginning, the very, very beginnings of opening up to disclosure that we exist. So let's begin to take advantage of that momentum by adding to the previous exercise of the cutouts peeking at you through windows, by now allowing you, when you notice them at any time during the day or night, face them, walk up to them more closely on your side of the window or the glass door or wherever you have pasted them so that they appear to be peeking in at you. Walk up to them, maybe at about a distance of, let's say, 3 feet. And once you are in that position and looking at them and allowing yourself to feel comfortable looking at them, allow yourself to say the following words. I see you. I recognize you. I invite you to invite me to participate more openly, more consciously, without fear. And I introduce myself to you as a friend of the messenger, as a friend of Bashar, as a friend of the hybrids, as a friend of the children who will come to live among us. And I am open in whatever way serves everyone best to participate in the ongoing program of evolution that will allow Earth to move forward and become the 6th hybrid race. I allow this on my own terms, in an experience of comfort, in an experience of love, in an experience of allowance on both sides. And I allow myself to come into more awareness, more conscious recognition, more conscious realization of the ongoing encounters in my life and the participation of all of my counterparts and connections and my soul, family, and spirit guides and higher mind in this endeavor. For all concerned with love and peace. You may write all this down. You may read it out loud when you are facing that image. And if you wish, at the end, you can add, this is up to you. Bashar sent me, and I am here. We will leave that part up to you. Remember to do this with no insistence, no assumptions, just allowance, bit by bit. You can do this once a day if you wish, twice a day if you wish. You don't have to do it more than 3 times a day, but we will leave that up to you. And it doesn't have to last any longer than the reading we just gave you. But be earnest, be open, and if you feel any trepidation or fear, that is all right. You can stop, you can adjust, you can breathe, you can relax, you can even stop and start again later if you wish. This is all about getting comfortable with the existence of these beings in your reality and getting comfortable with your existence in our reality. So that again, you are creating and building up a frequency that is representative of the third reality between the both of our realities, respectively. That will be the reality in which open contact will occur to the best of all concerned. So practice this every day if you wish, to guide yourself more and more into the frequency of open contact. And we welcome you in this exercise and in this endeavor. So tell them Bashar sent you. We thank you now for allowing us to deliver this next phase of this exercise to you. Have fun with it, enjoy it, relax into it, be creative with it, and just be yourself and keep moving forward. And in return for this gift you have given us, in allowing us to suggest this to you, I ask you now, in what way may we be of service to you? You may begin with your questions and comments if you wish.
Mutating themselves.
It wasn't just an issue of colonization. They had already altered their genetic structures to the point where they could no longer reproduce. Therefore, no matter where they were, they would die out.
I see. Do the Greys have a special connection to the UK? And is that why, according to a book by that, there is a Grey language that resembles Gallic?
There are connections to many different places on your planet regarding the Greys. There is no connection to the UK that is relatively different than any of the other connections.
Okay. And do you have mentors who are Essassani and were training you to become a first contact specialist? And were any humans involved in your training also?
We have discussed the idea that my own father was one of the mentors who trained me to become a first contact specialist. There are those that do specialize in those kinds of things, such as my father. Humans directly, no, were not involved, but simulations of humans were.
When you were experiencing a simulation of human contact, at the time it was happening, did you know it was a simulation?
No.
And what was your response emotionally to that kind of contact?
In the early stages, surprise, sometimes even to the level of disbelief.
What was the disbelief part?
Well, understand, as we have said, that there are not many civilizations we have encountered that have the same degree of density and forgetfulness that humans on Earth do regarding their concept of connection or disconnection to existence. And therefore, there were many things that we were presented with regarding human society that we thought, in a sense, were a trick to see whether or not we would believe what was being presented to us. When we found out that what was being presented, the degree of the limitation being presented to us in your society was not a trick, we found that to be almost unbelievable, because we had been brought up to be relatively challenged by believing that beings could actually experience that kind of disconnection from their source of power. Nevertheless, we got used to the idea that this would be a unique and exciting challenge, and therefore, as you say, I leapt at the chance.
So are there like second and third contact specialists also in your society?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, the idea of the being that we have referred to as Anima, which is a colleague of ours, and we have referred to her as a social engineer. So these kinds of ideas of then engaging in different aspects, different kinds of encounters, different kinds of information that gets shared, different kinds of interactions and exercises to allow a civilization to become part of the interstellar alliance are handled mostly by the so-called second and third level contact specialists.
Like when we reach the stage when we have would we have third contact specialists here on the planet, but they wouldn't be Essassani, right?
Oh, some of them might be eventually, yes.
But our frequency would have to be a lot higher for us
Yes.
to interact with them.
Yes, well, again, this happens in stages.
So the first contact level will go on for how long? Get any idea on that?
Well, we have already told that the window of open contact, which is mostly about the idea of first contact, is between your year of 2023 to about 2033 or 2040-ish, as you say. And therefore, thereafter, because of the acceleration that can occur during that first window of first contact, can then lead to the idea of second contact, again, starting intermittently, until such time as perhaps another decade, where things may accelerate to the point where the very, very early beginnings of third contact specialists can begin delicately and gently and intermittently laying out a foundation for what can occur next based on the choices that people on your planet are making based on the level of vibration they have achieved by that time.
So let's say in the next 6 months, as this information starts coming out about ETs
Yes.
and their presence potentially, I guess right now they're not even saying it's ETs. These may be unmanned or some sort of phenomenon, and they're even renaming it instead of calling them UFOs.
Yes. Unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, which is fine.
Right.
And it's fine that they do not necessarily speculate that they are extraterrestrial craft, as long as they state that they are open to the possibility that will be a sufficient difference to begin to alter the mindsets of individuals on your planet to recognize that we and our existence may at least be possible.
And that's part of what shifts our consciousness slowly.
Yes.
It reminds me of when humans thought the earth was flat, in a sense.
Well, some of them did, and some of them still do, even though it is a fallacy that that was actually a predominant belief on your planet. Most of the cultures on your planet have known for quite some time that your world is round.
So like the Native Americans, they were very connected to, I would say, Sirius energy. Is that accurate?
For a lot of them, yes. That doesn't mean they weren't connected to other things, but Sirius played a predominant part in their understanding of their connection to other kinds of consciousnesses in the cosmos, yes.
So what other groups were part of the connections that earlier humans were experiencing?
Pleiadian was a part of it. Of course, the original Anunnaki. Sirius did play a part, as we said. In terms of actual interaction, there were a few others we cannot name. But the idea of energetic connections is much broader, such as Orion energy, Arcturus energy, so on and so forth.
So that would have been more like through channeling, let's say like the Oracle of Delphi, or those kinds of connections to higher dimensional beings,
Well,
as
yes.
opposed to actual.
Yes, although a lot of that is not necessarily extraterrestrial, but more the idea of the connections to the higher mind and the spirit realm.
So we've had a smorgasbord of other dimensional beings to connect with, and it was more dependent on an individual's theme or their particular purpose in a lifetime, whether they would encounter these beings.
Both individuals and also cultural groups, yes.
So which cultural groups were most receptive to contact with extraterrestrials?
Most indigenous cultures before the advent of what you consider to be quote unquote civilization.
So like the Lemurians, were they open to contact and well aware of it?
Oh,
Or
absolutely. Since they were one of the first generations of human away from the Anunnaki.
okay. What are some of the forms of entertainment that the beings in your civilization enjoy?
We have talked about the fact that I am a sculptor. There are those that enjoy the idea of singing. There are those that enjoy many other kinds of artistic expressions. Exploration is also a form of entertainment as long as education is involved as well. The idea is that it can take any form spontaneously that any particular individual in our civilization feels the need to express, although some of them are going to be relatively different than the forms of entertainment that you experience. However, there are things that are sort of similar to physical activities, such as sports, so on and so forth, but a lot of things also take place on energy levels that you don't necessarily experience yet.
Do they also have a group of beings that enjoy sort of more the shamanic type of activities with communication of plants and animals and other, well, I mean, it seems like you do that all the time.
Yes,
but-
of course. We don't necessarily consider that entertainment in the way that you ask the question. That's just our normal daily activities.
So what have
I'll
you
give you a
discovered?
particular example.
Yes.
One form of entertainment, in particular practiced by a lot of children on our planet, is the idea of what might loosely translate in your language as to popping through dimensions. So the idea is that you can sit still and you can pick a number of parallel realities to relate to. Again, it can be a random choice. It can be decided in any number of ways. Maybe even someone in the group of children will say the number 12. And so all the children will, in that moment, allow themselves to feel a rush of their consciousness popping through 12 different parallel realities in that moment, and then afterward sharing the different experiences of the different experiences that versions of them had in those different parallel realities. That is a form of entertainment as well as education.
And like children here, they love to pretend, like they can pretend that they're a certain animal, or they can pretend they're a fireman or something like that.
Yes.
How is that, those ideas expressed in your culture?
More truly experientially. In other words, they can learn to shift their consciousness to experience life literally from the perspective of an animal.
So I could even see this imagery of like a bird flying and being able to see through the eyes of the bird.
Yes.
From that vantage point.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
And to some degree similar to what you have referred to as shamanistic.
NASA is sending a manned crew to fly by the moon in summer 23. This seems synchronous with the opening of window of contact.
It is.
Can you update us on anything that may happen during that kind of experience?
There will be, as before on other flights you haven't been told about, observations of various craft.
And like in Virginia Beach, I guess the craft have been buzzing ships.
On many places on your planet, this has been increasing. In that area, as you already have heard, off the coast of what you call your San Diego area, and a few other places around your planet, sightings are now increasing if you actually pay attention to the statistics.
And the reason for that is?
the beginnings of disclosure.
So they're just making themselves more well known so that
Yes.
we will stop ignoring,
Yes.
in addition to the changes we're already.
Yes, and having more information to release as authentic.
Oh, I see. And what about the idea of them shutting down the nuclear codes if there's like a
Again,
nuclear-
simply a message, as we have delivered before, that you are not permitted to have thermonuclear war, because it affects far more than just your planet and your dimension. Now, as we have said, there can be isolated, small tactical nuclear incidents as long as they do not affect interdimensional beings and consciousness, then that may not be prevented. But the idea of the shutting down, erasing, or altering the launch codes of many of your thermonuclear missiles is a direct sign that we are still watching and still giving the message that global thermonuclear war will not be allowed.
You attract. However, you say the beliefs are what generate thoughts and feelings, and therefore create a reality, one level above thought. When I used to listen to them, I was so obsessed and focused, monitoring 24/7 what I was thinking, all the time. And if a negative thought came to my mind, I was like, cancel, freaking out. However, you taught us that not only can we observe them neutrally, here and there, when they come, but that we have to, in order to face our fears and transform them and integrate them. You cannot transform what you do not own, as you say. And also, I was driving one day on a highway while listening to them, and I had a car crash. Nothing happened to me, thankfully. It was just the side of my car. But I was like, this shouldn't have happened while I'm listening to them, supposedly vibrating this high. So I wanted some clarity on those teachings. What's your true perspective about them? Thank you.
Different teachers have different ways of reaching different people with the translation of the words that come into your reality. There are people that gravitate to certain ways, certain semantics, certain words that are used to give them at least some understanding of the process. Other teachers may supply other aspects of it to give a different understanding, or at least an understanding of a different part of the process. Taken all together, you have a complete picture. But that doesn't necessarily mean that an absolutely complete picture or the same delivery will come through every single being that is a source of information. That's why it's so important for you in your evolution, as you change, as you grow, to pick the pieces out of any source of information that work for you and leave the rest behind. It may simply mean that you're now at a different place in your life where you need to hear things and do things in a different way. And therefore you gravitate to maybe one teacher one time and another teacher or another source another time, because you are piecing together from different sources what works for you to create the path of least resistance for who you truly prefer to be. So it's not so much the idea that there's any contradiction. You're simply looking at things from different points of view, using different ways and methods that appeal to different people who have different belief systems and need to hear things and receive things in different ways at different times. Now, with respect to the idea of your car crash, there can be many different levels on which you can look at this. Number one, on a very simplistic level, you can say that you may have created for yourself an experience that on the most simplistic, basic physical level simply says, pay attention to what's going on when you're doing something physically, because you can get hurt if you're not paying attention. So on the simplest level, the most basic physical level, you could simply say it's a lesson of don't be distracted when you're doing something like driving a car. Otherwise, this is what happens or can happen. That's a very simplistic lesson on a very basic physical level. On other levels, you could say, all right, you were in a state of being where you realized that by being in that state of being, that no matter what happened around you, no matter how dangerous it seemed, you would emerge unscathed. And therefore, being on that level, in some sense, allowed you to experience a different reality than what you allowed the car to experience, proving to you that physical reality, in some sense, can be circumvented. And so that could be part of the lesson as well. So there can be many levels to this idea, but it is not always wise to assume that just because you believe you're on a certain level that certain physical things can't happen, because again, please remember the basic concept is it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that shows what level you're on, what vibrational state you're in. So the idea is not that a car crash shouldn't have happened because I was on a high vibrational state. That's an insistence and assumption that doesn't necessarily serve the purpose of the experience, because it just demonstrated to you that just about anything can happen no matter what level you're on, because it's not about the idea of what happens, it's about the idea of what you do with what happens that really makes the difference in your experience of physical reality. So all these different things can come into play. It can be one or more or all of them, and it's up to you to determine what other lessons you can learn from having had that experience. But be open to the idea of not being insistent on what you think should or shouldn't be a reflection of the state you're in, because again, that really shouldn't matter.
Good day, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you so much for this co-creation. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It is our passion and our pleasure to speak with all of you as well.
I was surprised in your monologue. It's so playful.
Yes.
The suggestion, and also, you acknowledge that some people might be afraid to go in that way, but this playful way of approaching it, that must help us loosen. That must help us.
That's the idea. Yes.
And I also, when I was a child, was very terrified of, I don't know why, I had an inexplicable fear of,
Yes.
alien contact.
Well, that's because as children, when many of these contacts actually start happening in your lives, you have never been taught that such a thing is actually going on in your reality, and therefore you haven't been given the tools in order to handle it, and so you feel that when you are shifted to the different realities that are representative of these different beings you're interacting with, you feel out of control. Your physical mind doesn't understand what's going on because it doesn't have the tools to deal with it. And therefore, you feel out of control, and even to the point of going into survival mode, because the physical personality feels that when being shifted from the typical reality you're used to a different frequency of reality, it feels like you are being annihilated, that you're dying, and so you go into panic mode. So the idea of what we deliver to all of you are the tools necessary to incorporate within your understanding of how reality works, how these encounters are occurring, and give you the ability to calm yourselves and realize that from a higher level you made a choice to participate in this, whether you remember it or not, and thus you can operate within it more consciously, with more awareness, on your own terms, and experience something quite fascinating and joyful and creative and constructive as you remember more and more your willingness to participate in the evolution of the Earth toward becoming the sixth hybrid race.
But when you say the evolution of the Earth,
Yes.
You're kind of describing our, because we're in our own reality, right? Each of us is in our own reality.
Yes,
So-
but you have a shared agreed upon experience that you call your reality timeline.
Right. Got it. And so, now I'm really excited for this to take place. I can't believe, I'm so excited that it's even possible in my lifetime, potentially.
Yes, it is.
And my physical mind looks out there at the world and things it thinks it's noticing, and thinks to itself, oh my God, we have to go so far between now and 2023 to be really prepared to have a
First of all, don't gauge that by everything you see. Remember that you are capable still of looking at people making choices that represent other realities other than the one you're actually in. Just because you can see them doesn't mean you're in the same reality.
Yeah, the glass wall effect.
Exactly. So don't necessarily include everyone that you see having to be at that point. It is sufficient that those that are ready at that point to begin to experience the first stages of open contact will be at a point where they're prepared to do so.
Okay. So is there, a way to discern if something I'm seeing is actually relevant for me to kind of address, or it's just something behind the glass wall? Is, I guess, my highest excitement will take care of that.
Following the formula will allow you better and clearer discernment about what is relevant for you and what is not, yes. Of course, everything in a sense that you see is relevant, it just might be relevant in a different way. So in other words, it can be even as simple as seeing something you would say is not really relevant for your path doesn't mean that it's not relevant for you to use in the way that works for you. For example, seeing someone making choices that you don't prefer can add greater clarity to the choices that you do prefer. So even though the things they're choosing aren't directly relevant for you, the fact that you're capable of seeing someone choosing something you don't prefer is relevant because it provides greater background and clarity for you about what it is, by contrast, that you do prefer. So that's how to use what isn't relevant directly in an indirect way that is relevant for you.
And I guess also, if I see someone making a choice and it kind of triggers me emotionally, like maybe fear comes up, yes, and that's also an opportunity to look at what beliefs are.
Absolutely, and therefore relevant for you on that context as well.
Got it. And when I'm doing that, I try to look at my beliefs, go through the emotions to find the beliefs is kind of the way it seems to work for me.
Yes.
And but sometimes there are certain beliefs that just keep reappearing. And I know that you've mentioned that sometimes there can be belief systems and
yes,
other beliefs reinforce the other ones, but certain beliefs like I'm wrong, or I shouldn't exist. I know those don't make physical sense because it's arguing with life, as you've eloquently put it, but somehow they stay sticky. And I'm just wondering if there's anything else you can help us with. Or
well, all right. Well, again, the idea being that you may need to investigate more deeply what it is you're getting out of holding on to those things. Because that's the only reason they would keep reoccurring, is there must be a belief that says there is some advantage to this, some advantage to remembering this or recreating this idea. Now, it can be as simple as you saying, well, I do have a belief that if I don't keep reminding myself, I might forget and then fall into a regimen that I don't prefer. So in that sense, you might be using it for a positive reminder to keep you on track. Now, if you continue to believe you need that reminder, then it will constantly be there reminding you to always be aware that you could choose to go this way, but because of the fact that it keeps cropping up, you will never go that way. You don't have to keep doing it that way, but that may be one reason why you would keep repeating an awareness of something you don't prefer, because you might be using it as a guidance system to make sure you actually never choose that direction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think so.
So I'm not saying that is the reason. I'm simply saying that could be one of the reasons. It's up to you to investigate based on what I just told you about the idea that there must be something you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
That you believe serves you. Whether it actually does or not isn't the issue. There must be something you believe you're getting out of it that serves you. And the more you investigate it from that perspective, the sooner you will understand why you might keep repeating that cycle.
I'm trying to ask my question that myself that question now. And actually what comes is this belief that it's keeping me small so I'm not seen.
Oh, all right. And why don't you want to be seen? What are you afraid will happen if you are seen? Which is another question to always ask. What are you afraid will happen if you become who you prefer to be? So what's the answer to that one?
It feels dangerous, like someone's going to come get me.
Dangerous. Oh, someone's going to come and get you. Yes. How melodramatic.
It's true.
Now, this is simply the result of a misunderstanding of how frequencies work. Remember, if you actually are in the frequency of your true self, your passion, there cannot be, by definition, anything dangerous in that. If you suddenly feel that something dangerous might happen if you act on your passion, that's not a vibration of your passion. You're already out of the vibration of your passion to even think and entertain that something like that could happen.
I see. So the belief, the resistant belief has already kicked in.
Yes, because you are conflating and contradicting the idea of the definition of passion with a contradictory vibration of something dangerous happening to you, which, if you understand the pure definition of your true self, knows that that's not possible. You can only experience even the idea of the fear of something happening if you've already left the vibration of your true self, which shows you still have a belief that says it's better and safer for you to leave that vibration. Because you would know, just through the idea of understanding the physics of it, that you cannot experience what you're not the frequency of. So if you are the frequency of your true self and passion, then how can you experience anything that is actually truly dangerous to you? Why would you attract it?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And again, at the same time, remember, that doesn't mean you won't see things that might symbolize the idea of what could be dangerous. But again, it doesn't matter what you see. It only matters what you do with what you see that makes the difference. And if you stay in your vibration of passion, you will always respond to what you're seeing, even if it's what you don't prefer, in a way that allows you to use it in a way you do prefer and get a benefit from it. So remember, being in the state of passion, your true self, doesn't mean you can no longer see things that are not representative of what you prefer. It simply means that you will respond to them differently, even if they still exist and are still perceivable in your reality. That's the measure of change. Many people on your planet confuse the idea that, oh, well, I'm on a different vibratory level, I should never be seeing these things again. That's not true. As you expand your consciousness, you don't become less aware of the negative, you become more aware of the negative, but you become less likely to choose it as your experiential reality. So the idea is, it doesn't really matter to a truly centered being what happens. It only matters to them what they do with what happens, because that's what makes the difference in their experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
I know, that's why I said it.
Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting that the more we expand, actually, the more aware we become of negative choices.
Well, of course, because the idea of positive and negative and the center point permeates all of existence. Therefore, as you expand your awareness of more and more and more of existence beyond the physical, you're going to learn about more of the positive and more of the negative, as well as the center point in the trinity of neutrality and balance between the two.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Slips literally stop working overnight. And I've noticed that particularly the process of wondering, the frequency of wonder, is coming online as a very simple yet absolutely powerful tool to create your preferred reality and preferred experiences. I was wondering if you could shed some light on the process of wondering and the frequency of wonder from your perspective. Thank you very much. Bye.
The frequency of wonder is the frequency of the soul, the frequency of curiosity and wonderment, amazement and beauty, is coming directly from your connection to your own soul, expressing more of the soul vibration through you physically. The idea of the change in permission slips is usually an indication of this, that you are accelerating, that you are not holding on to anything that doesn't serve you and letting it go very rapidly, that you will ultimately realize you are the permission slip, the primary one that makes the decisions about what changes to make within yourself. So this is a sign usually of an acceleration and a connection more strongly to the idea of bringing more of your soul's energy through your physical form.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day.
I'm really grateful for the chance to talk to you today.
It is our deepest appreciation to experience the co-creation of this interaction.
So, my mom committed suicide a few weeks ago.
All right.
And it's brought up a lot of questions for me about your teachings that I'd like to explore.
By all means.
So everyone tells me that there's nothing I could have done or been differently in order to help, and that it wasn't anything that I was doing that led to the creation of that manifestation.
Yes, well, you made an agreement. You made an agreement with each other that this might be likely to happen. But again, it's not that it had to. But certainly you are not to be blamed for anything because other people make choices.
It's that I see a lot of parallels between it and my process and my thinking and my experience. Like, I held the idea of her intention for the last few years, and she seemed to be held in suffering during that time.
Yeah.
And then literally like 2 days after I decided I was ready to open my heart and start to forgive her and look for a new relationship,
Yes.
she killed herself.
Well, now you have one. Now you have the relationship. By opening your heart, it let her know she could move on and develop a relationship with you from a higher plane. She will still make choices to allow her in some way, shape, or form to finish whatever it is she may not have completed in terms of the choices that she made, in terms of the reasons why she may have chosen that. In exploring her life review, she may realize at some point she may have to experience certain challenges that are similar again in order to go towards completeness because she made a commitment to do so. Nevertheless, the choice to transition into spirit at that time can be of great assistance to you by allowing you to develop a relationship with her higher self. By stretching to make a connection, you stretch towards spirit, and that can help you in a loving way learn more about your spiritual connections as well. So please do understand that the relationship still exists. And now she is free from whatever it is she may have been experiencing that made that seem like the only choice. She will use it to her advantage, but for right now, her focus is on making sure you use the experience to your advantage to become more of who you are, knowing that she now, from that position, loves you unconditionally and is free from all pain and suffering.
And I've had pretty good clarity on that. I've honestly experienced this as the deepest healing process of my life. It has been transforming me.
Yes.
And I think the only thing that keeps me looking backwards is this idea of responsibility. And was it, did I hold her in pain? And is it because of my process that her journey went this way?
No. She is capable of making her own decisions.
So in that vein, since we're constantly navigating different realities billions of times a second, I'm also wondering, why did I find myself in the one where this happened instead of one where she would seem to stick around longer or her life experience could play out differently?
Because of what it's going to teach you that you felt was important for you to learn. You haven't really learned it completely yet. So you're asking about an agreement you made that hasn't played completely out yet.
So I understand how it could be the perfect reflection for me and like for my process.
Yes.
But then I wonder,
Yes.
So yes, you're talking about her and how she's doing fine in spirit and she made her choice.
Yes.
But since we're continuously creating our experience of others out of different, distinct, parallel reality versions of them,
yes,
who was I in relationship with? And which version of her will I be connected with in spirit?
A different version, a greater self. More of who she actually is as a reflection of the infinite.
I guess
whatever it is you need is what you will connect to in her.
Yeah. Sorry for kind of nervously talking over you.
No, that's all right.
So I guess I'm wondering about whether or not she's real in and of herself. Or
yes, of course she is. That doesn't mean you're not creating your version of it.
So if she has her own reality, how can it be that there are some where she doesn't do this and some where she does do this?
Because you're talking about a much higher level of the being that can experience many different things simultaneously. Right now, you're focused on what you understand as the spirit individual that represented your mother. That's the level that we're addressing right now. But on a much greater level, remembering that you are all that is, you can experience everything and anything simultaneously. It just depends on what level of the consciousness you're referring to when you talk about forming a relationship with it.
But she does have her own experience and her own choices, and she's not just a character on my screen or something.
No, you didn't make her up. The idea is everyone is a fundamental existing being, but you still create your version as an interface to relate to. That's like saying, you understand when you have a telephone conversation with a friend, You're not actually hearing their real voice. You're hearing a recreation electronically that sounds like them, but they have their own voice. It's just converted into electronic signals that are reconstituted into audio signals at your end. So it's like that. You're creating your version that you can relate to, even though she has her own reality, just as she creates her version of you, even though you have your own reality. Just like the telephone recreates the voice that isn't the original voice, but it's representative of something that is real.
Yeah. So my whole life, I've been recreating her out of
Yes.
many possible variants to create the experience I've needed of her.
Yes, exactly. As she has done with you.
But then in spirit, where we are connected in a continuous relationship is on a higher level of like all my possibilities, all her possibilities.
Well, yes,
relating to
those
each
that are
other.
relevant for whatever level you happen to be exploring, yes.
So then would it be that like when I'm in spirit, it's kind of like my oversoul is, because sometimes you've said that when we lose someone, they don't really miss us because they're already with us in spirit. And is that like an oversoul and an oversoul together?
Well, no, it's more like the higher mind. The oversoul is something even higher. But the idea is, again, it is a more direct connection with the reality of the being. Remember that physical reality is a projection of consciousness. It's a dream. That's why you kind of have to create your version in the way that you do. Now, you're still creating your version even in spirit, but it's a closer connection to the reality of the person, the reality of the being. There's less in the way. There's less you have to recreate.
I think there's a lot I'll have to listen back to, and I might not fully understand all of this,
That's
but
all right.
I think what's been important to me is to understand that she exists in her own right and that I didn't make this in some tragic way where it was my fault.
No, it's not your fault.
One of the thoughts that kept recurring was like that if I had had more space in my heart for her sooner, there would have been space in my world for her.
Yes, but you see, the idea of opening your heart is the point, and it didn't have to result in the idea of her choosing to stay. In fact, the idea of the opening of your heart continues in the relationship that you will be forming with her as she is now. That's the point.
Yeah, and that's what I'm reaching for, is the ability to relax into this and receive all the gifts that it offers without holding myself in blame and guilt.
Exactly. So her transition into spirit gives you a wonderful opportunity to accelerate the process of opening your heart and being more of yourself.
It's happening.
Yes. And therefore it was a very loving thing for her to do. And this was done by arrangement and agreement between the two of you.
Wonderful to connect with you. Thank you for helping me today.
And you as well. It is our passion and our pleasure to do so. Good day.
Good day.